Look Outreach is underwritten by the generous support of Munter Enterprises. Family owned and operated since 1972, integrity is important, as our family name is on every project. Our word is our bond. Munter Enterprises. Just build it.
Talk about my big fish.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, you've heard the phrase, time flies when you're having fun. Well, how about a year? How about 13 months? Now, I know these guys think it was fun, but it was hard work. This is two of the members of the Saratoga Charter Commission. And joining me today is Pat Kane, who's vice chair. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
And Bob Turner, who's the chair.
Thanks.
And they might recognize you, Bob. You've been on a few times, to say the least,
Jesse.
right?
Yes.
This is a fascinating process, and we've got a lot of information to bring you up to date on. Let's go back, just in case somebody doesn't know, that for the last 13 months, you guys have put the pedal to the metal and just have really done an amazing job. I really want to compliment the commission on the work that you've done. The goal here was to really determine what would be the most efficient form of government for the city of Saratoga, and that's an arduous task, to say the least. You know what, I'll start with you, Bob. 13 months ago, what happened?
So every 10 years under our current charter, a commission gets formed to study how well the city's governed and what changes need to be made. We spent the first 7 months extensively reviewing the city. We've interviewed over 100 people. We've reviewed 50 charters from both New York State and elsewhere, before finally voting in December, to come up with a different form of government.
Right, recommending a different form of government, right? You've been involved from the beginning?
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
Give me your impressions from the beginning.
It really was an interesting group of people, right? And 15 people of very diverse backgrounds coming together, quite honestly, with 15 kind of different opinions.
But
sure. From that point, everybody kind of came together, still exchanging their opinions and so forth. But ideally, we all learned from each other. It was, I think, 350 years of experience sitting there at the table here in Saratoga. It was pretty cool to see all that passion come out at different times. Things that were really important to them that they wanted to see in this new document.
Right. Now, the goal, by the way, that we're trying to accomplish here is, let's say there are three choices for a form of government. We have the current commission form of government. If you watch the city council meetings here on Look TV or Look TV Online, then you've seen how that form of government operates. There's a strong mayor form of government, kind of speaks for itself, a mayor in a very strong position. And then what we call the city manager or council manager form of government, which actually turns out to be the form of government that this commission recommended. In looking at these three forms of government, just what hit you about them?
Well, I think more than anything else, when we talk to citizens and business communities and nonprofits, what they said is, we want to end the sort of partisan bickering that we see at the city council table, and we want to reduce the sort of bureaucratic inefficiency. And once you sort of took those two things, how can we best protect the taxpayer and represent citizens? It kind of dictated itself that we shifted to the council manager form of government. I think there's a reason that it's the most common form of government for cities under 100,000. 70% of cities have, in that size category, have this form of government.
Did you look into the strong mayor form of government?
We did, and one of the things that you realize too is that in a city our size, the population of potential strong mayors is very small. And also just the political ramifications, it just never has been warmly received because most people feel like, I don't want to put too much power in one person's hands.
Yes, I've
Spread
got
it across.
People looked and they said, we don't want to be like Albany, we don't want to campaigns where they're spending $500,000.
Right, and they always say right after you get elected, the next thing that you do, the first thing you do in office is start rerunning for office again, right?
Every 2 years.
Yeah, every couple of years, usually every couple of years, right? Some of the highlights. You did so many interviews. You talked to so many people. Give me just off the top of your head some of the highlights.
I think I'd say two things were real highlights. First was, we did over 100 interviews with nonprofits, business leaders, former elected officials. And one of the things that was really striking was how much dissatisfaction there is with our current form of government and with City Hall. And it goes back years. again, they just feeling like with the 5 silos that you have in the commission form of government, everything takes too long. It's too bureaucratic, and there's too much negotiation and partisan bickering that happens.
Well, you know what, Bob? I hear this all the time. It's almost like it can't be streamlined this way, right? What about a highlight for you, Pat?
I think finding out that how many people just don't know what we have. As Bob points out, most mayors will tell you that everyone they talk to has no idea how the commission form of government is. Even people who grew up here. It just seems like their perception is not correct when it comes to what the commission form is all about. So try to re-educate people is almost starting from scratch. But it was interesting just how many people for the last 4 or 5 decades are all saying the same thing. No one really knows how the commission form of government works. And that's not a negative or positive. It's just such an unusual form of government that people, they think if I call the mayor's going to handle everything for me. Because that's where we see it on television, we see it locally. Most people have moved from another form, and they assume that one-stop shop happens here. That's not work. That's not the case.
You want to know something? I have quite a few more questions for these gentlemen, so we're going to break this into 2 parts, okay? In part 2, let's get into what actually constitutes the city manager form of government. All right, guys?
Yep.
So hang in, and we'll be back.
Yep.
To see part 1 of this interview, you can head to our website, looktvonline.com.
Outreach is underwritten by the generous support of Munter Enterprises. Family owned and operated since 1972, integrity is important, as our family name is on every project. Our word is our bond. Munter Enterprises. Just built.